Melissa awoke in Anthony's arms in the middle of the night. The window curtain blew lightly from the cool breeze outside, and everything was silent. So peaceful, she thought. Why is this happening to us? Who am I? What am I? Anthony stirred and opened his eyes. In the dim light, he could see her eyes clearly. They were looking into his, full of warmth and tenderness. She didn't say anything. The room was quiet, and he felt so close to her, so a part of her. I love you, Melissa, he whispered. She didn't respond, and he grew worried. Did you hear me? I said I loved you. She put a finger over his lips to silence him. Shh. I just want to savor this moment and never forget it. Tell me what you hear. He concentrated and frowned. I don't hear anything. Do you? Melissa smiled. Oh, yes. Yes, I do. I hear our hearts beating for one another. She could tell he couldn't, so she took his hand and placed it over her breast. Close your eyes and listen. Anthony closed his eyes and she whispered, Listen. Listen and you'll hear it. At first, he felt nothing as he felt her heart beating beneath his hand. But a few seconds later, the sound entered his ears. It was a low thumping far off in the distance. It was coming closer, and he opened his eyes. Melissa was grinning at him. Oh my God, he whispered as the thumping grew louder. It crashed into his skull just as she kissed him. Flashes of light blew off in his head, and he tried to blink them away, but couldn't. Melissa's lips were warm and entrapped him with their tenderness. I'm dying, he thought. I'm going to heaven. Her eyes twinkled and her tongue moved softly against his. He moaned into her mouth and felt like he was falling down an elevator shaft. At the bottom he could see Melissa's beautiful face. She held her arms out to him as he plummeted downwards and cried, Come to me. He hit a pool of cool water and she kissed him and breathed into his mouth. He sank below the surface and his eyes opened wide in panic. Melissa's voice was in his mind then. It's all right. You're safe with me. He relaxed, knowing the oxygen from her kiss was keeping him from drowning. She wrapped her arms around his waist and they floated into the stillness. Suddenly, Anthony was surrounded by billowy clouds. He was amazed at the beauty of their colour. They were a white so pure it took his breath away. In the distance, silver towers appeared, and a feeling of peace overwhelmed him. He began to thrash about, and Melissa pulled her lips away from his. They were back in bed again, lying side by side, looking into one another's eyes. What are you? He asked, panicked. What was that place? Where did you take me? The smile faded from Melissa's face. It was beautiful, wasn't it? His eyes flashed pure terror. Where did you take me? Tell me. She began to cry. I don't know. He stared at her hard and waited a moment before pulling her back in his arms. She sobbed against him and he whispered, I'm sorry, Melissa. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I'm scared. What's happening to us? She gazed into his eyes, frightened. I don't know who I am. How can I answer you? Anthony hugged her tightly, and she felt safe in his arms again. Please don't yell at me again. I need you. I won't, he said. I promise. I just need answers. We both do. She kissed him then. A gentle kiss that tickled his brain. His muscles felt like jelly, and he gasped. It felt as if tendrils had probed deep inside his head until they were joined together as one. We're soulmates, Melissa whispered. Somehow I know we're soulmates. Can you feel it? Anthony smiled and caressed her face. Yes, I can feel it. Melissa smiled and closed her eyes. Anthony held her till morning, staying awake as he fought to think of answers to their questions. The comic book Army of God suddenly entered his mind, and he gasped when the fantastic realization hit him. Oh my God, he thought. It can't be true. When Melissa awoke, Anthony was looking at her in a different way. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but it seemed to her to be a look of devotion. What are you thinking? She whispered. His eyes were clear as he searched hers to be sure of what he was thinking. I'm thinking about how lucky I am. You're not like any other woman, Melissa. She laughed. I know that's silly. What else are you thinking? His eyes grew warmer. I'm thinking, I never ever want to spend even one night without you. We belong together. Forever. Her lower lip trembled with emotion, and she gently touched his cheek. I believe that.